Hello, writing Rabble. It's your Rabble Rouser author Chris Everhart back for another session for new writers who want to get started and experienced writers who want to get unstuck or just want to see storytelling from a little bit of a different angle. That's what we're doing here. And I have today my cohort, Wes Nelson. How's it going, Wes?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Good, good. We didn't do a show last weekend because I was in Fargo for their fanboy fan anyway, some 2 day Comic Con.
Nice.
So I had a table there for Badass Girl. That's her. Our
Sweet.
comic book, and actually didn't do a lot of sales, but got to see some people I haven't seen in like 3 or 4 years who only had issue one, and some had issue two, but they didn't have issues three and four. So
Okay.
that was cool. And then I also met up with some a comic book store owner who I met at previous Fargo Comic Cons, and actually got to visit the store. Was it 2020 or 2021? I flew out to San Francisco to drive somebody's car back for them and made the northern leg and stopped at their comic book shop in Bismarck.
Sweet.
And they were there, so I got them some updated copies and the new copies of Badass Girl. And also, it looks like we're going to. Oh crap, that's right, I forgot. Um, we were talking about the possibility of them doing a comic book creator, author, artist event some weekend this summer. So that might be fun. So that
Yeah.
might be on the schedule. And last 2 weeks, I've also been diving into AI and what
Yes.
that can do for writing. And
Nice.
that was quite an adventure. It's really funny. It's kind of like trying to write with a crazy person. You know,
Yeah.
the AI doesn't necessarily give the same. Well, Chat GTP doesn't necessarily give the same answers
Yeah.
every time. I had a discussion with it about how I could set up my writing prompts,
Hmm.
and I talked back and forth with it about whether it could um, use a Google Doc or a Google Sheet
Yeah.
so that it can review my prompts and use those prompts as cues for helping me write a story.
Okay.
And it said yes, and even confirmed by experimentation that it could see the Google Docs I was sharing in the Google Sheet. So
Yeah.
I went really deep into creating like 700 lines of prompts of story development, character development. And then when I went to use them, the
Yeah.
AI said it couldn't read those.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually put, I was like copying and pasting from these discussions where
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but you said this. Yo, I'm sorry over and over again. I can't access outside files. And it even at one point gave me its own email address to send a Google Doc invitation to.
Really?
Yeah. But it still wouldn't, it wouldn't acknowledge that it had done that. So,
Oh.
yeah. So what I did was I did a little more. Well, it was good because the character development stuff we're going to go over today. It really forced me getting those AI prompts going. Really forced me to look really into detail about the characters, and I think it's going to be helpful for all of us
Okay.
to
Sweet.
give us a lot of details actually for character development. So I
Nice.
think it's going to end up being a plus. But I also bought a subscription to a service called Sudowrite, Sudowrit. Don't
Hmm.
worry, you're not ready for it yet. Um, that is an actual front end specifically for fiction writers.
Okay.
And it was created by fiction writers. So diving into that, it looks like it's a pretty powerful tool, but it's going to require, there is a learning curve, and it also kind of requires that I start thinking about the storytelling differently and development differently in a way that matches up with the way that service works.
Hmm.
And they're adding new tools all the time for fiction writers. So I'll be spending the next week or so really diving deep into that. My first goal with using pseudo is to get it to help me finish the trilogy that I've started for Coalescence Publishing, because uh, it's like I have a mental block somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, about and it's an advanced stage of the story that I have a really hard time visualizing it or coming up with the right storyline, or rather the right parts of the story that will help me conclude what I've started. So I've just kind of got a baby idea that there's something that I'm missing,
Okay.
right? There's just something that,
So you're hoping the AI can help figure it
well,
like
not necessarily. I don't know if anybody can help me. It might be just something, psychic that I have to figure out for myself. But it may well do that by making suggestions of what could go in those blank spots that I have,
oh,
and
okay.
help me kind of, and just sort of demonstrate for me what should be there.
Yeah.
So, like everything else that I've done as far as creating the story hill and all that, things kind of come in stages. It's like now I'm realizing that it's like there's a blank spot in my mind for something, but I
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
Okay.
But I do think that it may be part of what it may be, that structural thing that's blocking me from really moving faster than I should be able to
Okay.
on the stories. And it's a really interesting thing too, is that pseudo right in particular, their trainer says, well, first of all, it does not do the writing for you.
Okay.
it
That's
does
good
it does
to yeah.
some,
Yeah.
but she describes it as having like a junior writer in the room with you who can make
Mhm.
suggestions, but also, you know, keep track of things. So it's been quite an adventure already, and I'm a little tired today because I've been burning the candle at both ends trying to get that set up and going. But there have been some really remarkable responses that I've gotten to AI for story.
Really?
So yeah, stuff that I've actually included in
Sweet.
a yeah. So it's pretty cool. But again, it's a tool,
Yeah.
and you have to, as a writer, be able to guide it.
Yeah.
So you still have to know story.
Yeah.
So that's so I think the when people talk about a danger of AI cranking out a bunch of garbage books, it's really still going to come down to the writer and what they understand about stories. Because maybe it will get to a point where you can say, write me a 65,000 word book about, monkeys on the moon,
Yeah.
and it can do it, but there's, it still won't be, what you consider a complete and well rounded work.
Right.
So the real power of AI right now is in very short things, because it has the
Mhm.
attention span for that.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to? How's your writing going?
Good. I've been using well, first of all, I wanted to say that I did back the Kickstarter, so I'm
Thank
on
you.
board with that.
All right.
Um, Second, I've been using ChatGPT for a couple weeks now, but only in like a research assistant
Yeah.
category where I'll ask it questions about like my character is going to drive this car and he's going to be using a remote start feature. So first
Yep.
of all, I'll be like, does this car have a remote start feature and how does that look like? And I'll compare it to Google and Google will tell me, check out the Audi dealerships near you. And then I'll go to Chat
Yeah.
GPT and it'll
Right.
say, well, based on the PDF of the user manual that I found, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
want to use your Audi Connect app. And I'll be like, wow, that's a great that's a great detail because instead of having my character hit a fob with a remote starter, he's going into his phone and using the app instead.
Nice.
So, and that's probably something that, you know, a half a percentage of people would point out, but I like it as a detail. It makes me feel better about that part of the story. Plus, it's just more futuristic that he would use his phone to start his car and not a key fob or something. But
Yeah.
my week's been going well. After the feedback I got from you 2 weeks ago now, I had to go back and I didn't cut anything, but I just uncompiled it, or I unchecked the box to add it into my word count. So I went backwards to come back forwards. And then I
Hmm.
had a really good kind of burst night the other night where I did like 4 or 5 thousand words in one night. And I was like, and then I
Wow.
tried to do it the next night, and I was like, I got 200, and I was like, all right, this ain't happening tonight. And
Yeah.
it's like when it happens, I better be ready, and it's like clear the calendar and like just let it go, because I can't force it. But when it's there, and it feels really good. So um,
Hmm.
I'm up to like 24,000 words right now, so that feels really good. Um, according to Scrivener, I have an 82-page trade paperback novel right now, which is
Okay.
like, and I don't know what they're basing that off of, but that is astonishing to me that I am so over the moon excited about that because
Yeah.
it feels like I'm actually like I'm into it now, you know.
Hmm.
So the thing that I've been running into this week is the the story is just it's just running now, and I'm almost like getting to things faster than I maybe want to,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I'm trying to like slow myself down and make sure that I'm providing enough room for, and I really want to get your opinion on this. Is it just pausing more for character development, or you know, I don't want to just like run right off the cliff and then, you know, the story's over and I didn't really develop anything. So but I also don't want to lose the pacing. So I just would be really interested to hear what you think about how to make sure that that balance is drawn, and it's what's a good way to do that.
Yeah. So are you, does it feel like you're running out, or rather, you're completing the plot earlier or with
Yes.
fewer pages or words than you want to, and there should be more of a book here?
Right. Yeah. Like I'm
Yeah.
getting to things a lot sooner than I thought I would.
Right. Well, this is a place where subplots can come in, character development. Yes, I agree that you you don't want to lose the pace of the story, but the way to still have a pace, even when adding things like a subplot or character development, um, or scene, location and setting description and that kind of thing, is to, for me, it's to be consistent with how you present those things. So,
Okay.
you don't go back and put in 2 chapters of this guy's childhood because you need more chapters, right,
Yeah.
in the book.
Yeah.
Instead, you have to pace it out where, and as we've done it on the story hill, which we might as well have a look at right now, you you want to do it in a consistent manner,
Okay.
right? So let's see. Okay. Da, 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 da. Got to pull this aside. Give me just a sec.
So I shouldn't just pause and describe snow for 5 pages.
Probably not, unless you
Okay.
want it to be that kind of book. So if we look at the story hill, you'll see that there we have our. By the way, can you see my cursor moving at
Yep.
all? Okay.
I'm good.
So you see we have our main turning points, right, in each
Yep.
stage. And then we have the plot points on the outside of the curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also have your character points on the inside of the curve there.
Okay.
So yeah, you could be running your plot 1,000 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
But maybe we should add some points of character development in there.
Okay.
And what I have in here on the inside of the story arc in blue is it's not necessarily chronological or in the exact places it should be um, in the story, but those are just some of the main ideas for where how the character must develop,
Okay.
right? So what I would do in those situations is I'd create scenarios or scenes that would enable me to show these things,
Okay.
right? So, for example, let's say after the 25% mark, he gets pulled or decides to go into this new endeavor. He can't really help it. He kind of has to. Well, how can we show, not tell, that he's in that bull in a china shop phase?
Yeah.
Does he accidentally uh, either do something uh, in the physical world, like literally break something, or get lost, right, and get end up in a bad neighborhood,
Yeah.
right, where everything always used to go just fine for him. Now that's one of the things. Or he insults somebody, or runs afoul of some authority that he never used to worry about.
Yeah.
So those are opportunities to maybe put those scenes in there that will show those stages that he's in.
Okay.
Um, and then again, you want to pace those, right? You don't
Yeah.
want to you don't want to say, well, Chris said to do, put some of that stuff in. So all of a sudden, you've got, you know, 5 chapters of him driving the wrong direction and ended up in a bad neighborhood,
Yeah.
right?
Or like 5 chapters of him going to therapy and just like literally doing character development.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you want to pace those out.
And just to like clarify, you probably said this a million times, but when you say 10%, 25%, 50%, is that like if I have a 100-page novel, should I be hitting the goal change at page 50? Is that what that kind of means?
Well, yeah, that's the idea. It's
Okay.
not exact, by and I
Yeah.
think I've said that enough. It's not exact. It's just that this type of storytelling around those points
Okay.
is when that happened, and this is meant primarily to help you create an outline with the right uh, with the right turning points.
Okay.
So I mean, if it goes to 60 or percent or something like that for the script flip, the goal change. That's
Yeah.
no. Then you in editing will have to go back and decide if it's too much leading up
Okay.
to the goal change, right?
Yeah, because I think I was spending more than 10% in that first range. And so that's a good kind of guidepost for me to maybe call that section or edit that section down. So,
Yeah, when you get past those points, those general turning point, which I put in as percentage point of the story, I think you risk, well, I risk boring myself as the writer.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and I'm the first audience, so
Right.
I can look at something and go, God, this is dragging on way too long.
Yeah.
I'm bored with this now, and I still haven't made my point.
Right. Let's get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at your stage, I mean, just put it in, and then,
Yeah.
on editing on the second run around, we'll find those things and fine tune them.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought about too, while I've been doing this, uh, trying to get prompts together for the AI, is I think I may need to input a couple of what they call beats or set pieces, which is basically action in these spots. So challenges of learning may be broken out into like 2 or 3 plot points or set pieces. Something that the hero must encounter
Yeah.
or go or get through. And so challenges of learning, and then on the other side, challenges of applying. little, well, it's pretty vague. And I'm just wondering if I could say, okay, there's one, and then there's two major things that they have to go through in this phase, right?
Is there like a distinction that you want to get at, like something you want to pull apart in there? Like it needs to do two things instead of one, or
Well, that's the point too, is that each of those stages would have both an action and, well,
yeah,
there would be an action. Like, let's say we just end up going with two, uh, I don't even know what to call them, two story beats.
yeah,
Um, and there would also be an accompanying two character development beats,
oh, okay,
or maybe even three. So you've got character development, and then you've got one of those beats, and then you've got a little more character development, and then you've got one of those beats, and then you have more, another character development beat.
sure,
So it's just kind of something I just started thinking about. Using, trying to work with the AI, which requires things to be fairly specific in a lot of cases. If well, depending on what you wanted to do, it's forced me to rethink, you know, things like that. It's like, yeah, challenges of learning is kind of general, so maybe there should be something a little more clear uh, in that.
right. And that little example there kind of highlights the broader scope of why AI will always need humans, and like because if you give it the wrong feed and wrong prompt, and it just runs away with itself, and
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
everything I'm hearing is that it's about prompts. I mean,
yeah,
and and I was talking to a writer on the Coalescence, my publisher's podcast last night, and one of the writers has been using AI, and she insists that I may be having these problems because I'm not reminding it in the right way of
oh,
what had come before.
yeah,
Um, but either way, I mean, you know how Chat GTP works. It works like a chat.
yep,
It doesn't have but pseudo write, for example, has the formatting to sort of separate these things out, and
interesting,
then also hopefully refer to stuff that you've written or you know that you've done before with it. But Chat GTP doesn't quite have that.
yeah,
Chat GTP is really good for short form stuff.
yeah,
People who write blog posts or listicles, or whatever, or if you just have a quick question,
yeah,
and yeah, so much faster than Google. Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah. That's what I've been, just quick questions. That's all I've been using it for. So
Yep. Sweet. Okay. What other questions do you have from this year or from
um
this week writing?
let me just look back through what I was working on. Well, I had I I was just kind of going and writing, and all of a sudden this scene sort of came into being, or came into fruition, where it sort of, the character's in a car and he's with Bob. Bob is wanting to smoke a cigarette, and Bob antagonizes and goads Russ again and again and again. And out of nowhere, Russ has a moment of, like, he kind of hulks out, and all of a sudden a flame bursts out of his finger. And I
Mm.
was like, I never even thought of that before. I
Yeah.
was always going with electricity, maybe, or but all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden it just made sense, and I was like, but I don't want to get too far afield either, where it changes. But I guess, does it matter? Because if this is how it feels, organic, and it's, I don't know. Like, there's this thing where I just start going, and like I have to keep checking myself against the outline, which I'm thankful for. It's, I'm so grateful that it's there. But sometimes the story just takes on a mind of its own, and it
Oh,
just sort of,
absolutely. You're the master of the outline. Change the outline if it's not working for you,
yeah,
right?
I
Or if
know.
you find something that could be different.
Yeah,
The other thing is, as the master of this universe, you can say it's circumstantial, right?
yeah,
A flame came out this time, but maybe it's electricity another time,
yeah,
right? So,
So it's about trusting myself again.
well, yeah, and trusting the process. I mean, I
Yeah.
love the idea of a flame coming out of his. So I think what you're saying is Bob wants to smoke, but Russ doesn't want him to smoke.
Yeah.
But a flame comes out of the end of uh, Russ's finger as he gets angry,
Yeah.
and Bob just lights a cigarette with it, I assume.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And then blows Russ's finger out like a birthday candle, end
Nice.
scene. And then,
Yeah. Well,
confusing
that's
both of them and also like hinting at Bob kind of knowing that there's something else inside of Russ, but needing a way to like kind of goad it out of him to see if it's there or not. So,
right. So remember everything that Bob, if I remember right, everything Bob does, while it seems to either antagonize or help Russ, is actually helping Bob's boss
right.
to expose the powers that Russ has so he
Right.
can exploit them later.
Right.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, I think it could be either. I think it could be both.
Yeah.
Um, it's not, it's going to be a little harder to keep it interesting in today's technological world if he can only get a flame to come out the end of his finger.
Right.
If he can get static electricity or something to come out, then that might help him with some electronics and stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's
So,
stuff. Yeah. I don't know. I just get caught up on that stuff and I just need to remember that I can change it. I can change the outline. And I could
mhm.
I could make it a bolt of electricity that could easily light a cigarette too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's like taking a step back and just re-looking at it again. It doesn't seem so, tunnel vision,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Well, you're not as rule bound as you suspect you are, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing is, I tend to do that too, and I have to remind myself, wait a minute, I'm the author. Who am I? who, who do I have to ask permission for
Yes.
or from? It's like,
So
no, dummy, I can do this if I want to.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so make it work however you want it to, and if it's going to be a series, or even if it's only one book, you have to set the world and some of those rules up now,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't mean that later on you can't make it so, oh, it's not just a flame, it's also electricity if he wants it
Yeah.
to be or needs it to be,
Yeah.
right? So he doesn't have any control over his powers at this point, so it's basically going to be pressure that forces him to exhibit powers that he doesn't necessarily know he has.
Right. And he has no control. So they come out unpredictably and not when he needs them.
Yeah.
And then the goal change and hopefully then on the other side of it, the mastery and all that stuff. So yeah.
Well, yeah, let's talk a little more about what you're doing with the goal change. So, the first half of your story, Russ is doing what?
Russ is trying to pay back the debt to Bill, the overlord of the luck industry or that sector of the luck industry. He is working with Bob, who Bob shows up out of nowhere. Russ doesn't know that Bob is, double crossing him. The goal change is going to be an opportunity to finally harvest all the luck that Russ needs to pay back Bill, but the situation, the scenario in which all that luck appears is going to be some natural disaster, which Russ finally has some sort of come to
Okay, let's
Jesus.
dial it back. Let's break it down. The first
Okay.
half of the story, Russ is doing what?
He is trying to get his life back.
Okay, the second half of the story, Russ is doing what?
He is realizing that he can't get his life back the way he wants it to be. And he has to make his own life. I don't know. That feels dumb. Um,
See, it's not easy, is it?
No, it's freaking hard, and it keeps changing.
Well, didn't we say at one point that the first half of the book, Russ is trying to, was it control the magic or something like that? I can't remember. We'd have to go back to the archives and
Yeah, I
see
have to
what
go
we
back to
said
my
before in the Writing Rabble
right.
episodes, but it should be something simple.
Yeah, it
You know,
was
like Star
simple.
Wars. First
Yeah,
half of the movie, they're trying to get into the Death Star. The second half of the movie, they're trying to get out of the Death Star. Jaws. First half of the movie, Chief Brody's trying to avoid the shark. Second half of the movie, Chief Brody's hunting the shark.
yeah, and this is why it's so important to keep going back to this document because it seemed easy 3 weeks ago, and now I can't for the life of me
Yeah.
bring it out of my head.
I think it
So
was
yeah,
something like the first half of the book, Russ was trying to run away from this world, this underground magic thing.
yeah,
In the second half of the book, he's trying to get into it so he can either control it or do something.
yeah. I need to yeah. I
Yeah. Well, these are questions that you want to keep asking,
right.
help you stay more on track.
Right. I've been so focused on word count that I haven't
Uh,
even bothered to look at the outline
you're
and where
you're
it's going.
yeah you're ignoring the major part of your job as the writer.
Yeah, I've been just focused on the gamification of that little word count up in the top,
Yeah,
as if that
which is fine too. But we want to make sure those words are going somewhere,
right.
that they're useful. And to be honest, at your stage, this being your first novel, it's not like you're doing anything wrong by stream of consciousness writing and stuff. I mean, you're working out your style and your pace and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
and you're also coming up like with the flame finger thing. You're coming up with some of those devices that you're going to use in the story.
Yeah.
So it's not we. I don't intend for this exercise that we're doing here to be a straight line only, between start and publish.
Yeah.
You do have to, well, you have to take your little story journey yourself.
You got to take the llama for a ride.
That's right. Yeah. What other questions do you have that might have come up this week?
Well, now I need to go dive back into that. So that's my that's my
Okay.
homework. That's my
Yeah, I
question.
mean, if it helps, think about those turning points at 10,
Yeah.
25, 50, 75, and 90 to sort of reframe what you're doing.
Yeah. And just make sure what I've been writing still lines up and then readjust either side of the hill. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do.
So hopefully you're getting this, 10, 15 years before I did.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that it's like happening in the moment.
Mm, good.
As we're going, it's happening. It's not like wait till the end and then have to redo 500
Hmm.
pages or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm so lucky to have that opportunity. So,
Okay. All right. Anything else that's come up this week?
no, that's it.
All right. Well, you're writing. I love it. Jumping in and yeah, some of those days you're going to get more done than others. I
Yeah.
mean, and by the way, I did do the math using my calculator. If you only write 200 words a day times 365 days a year, that's 73,000 words.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you were to make your daily goal at least 200 words, then you're heading in the right direction.
That's absolutely doable.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
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 And
I would hope so.
what I used to do was I'd say, I'm gonna sit down and write for 10 minutes. Just
Yeah.
10 minutes. That's all I have to do today, whether I'm tired, distracted, don't feel like writing, whatever. And most days, that 10 minutes would turn into an hour plus.
Oh, nice.
But on the days when it was a real struggle, the writing, then hey, I got my 200 words in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So different ways of thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
and ways that you can kind of fool yourself into doing more work than,
Yeah.
because the worst thing is sitting around thinking about what you're going to write. I mean,
Right.
that, ugh, ugh.
Which is like why looking at the outline isn't as fun as just writing. But I end up wasting. I could be wasting time. I don't want to say wasting time, but it's good to check in on it. Not that it needs to be the whole night.
Yeah. I mean, just refer back to it,
Yeah.
right? And if you find yourself, well, first of all, if you're writing and you're finding yourself having a blast with whatever you're writing, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you can always grab that and put it into a scraps folder in Scrivener if it
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't match, but it's good and you like it.
Yeah.
But if things are kind of going so or you're frustrated, refer back to your outline.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might help.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the the draft here. Okay, so what I did, you know, what I should do first. I'm going to show you this because this will haunt your dreams. Um, let's see, move some scene. Let me add another one. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is the prompts list that I created in Google Sheets. One when chat after Chat GPT told me it can read these.
Okay.
All right. So what I did, and what it was is as I was working with the bot, it was just saying over and over again, be specific, be specific, be specific.
Yeah.
All right. So let's have a look at this. And this I thought was the easiest way to organize this stuff. And also that I know that there are ways to, for example, you see this right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I knew that there are ways to both make pull down menus and to link between pages.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Yeah. That's a little advanced stuff. But anyway, this is what I created. All right. So first, and again, it was about getting detailed and then realizing something was missing and getting more detailed, right?
Yeah.
So you see that, and this one that I was doing as an experiment with the AI was a romance series, sci-fi romance series.
Okay.
All right. So you see that I go into all of the things needed for, the general stuff, genre, writing style, POV, book, how many books in the series, etc. Okay. Now we're getting into the setting. So the epic, the age, the setting, all of the things about the setting.
Jeez.
Yeah. This is why it took me 2 weeks of working on this. I've got locations, so different locations where scenes would take place. Because my idea was that, oh, wow, I could just create these pull down menus
Yeah.
on the scene page where I can just say, oh, okay, so I'm going to pull down, you know, protagonist A and then pull down rival A, you know what I mean?
Oh
To
yeah.
create a scene in
Yeah.
X location.
Yeah.
So this is what I came up with. Everything that most characters have in common. This is your character development.
This is like code.
Sort of. That was my idea that I could just share this directly with the AI.
Wow.
Yeah. So now most of what I just went through was characters,
Yeah.
right? So that's going to be probably the most of it. And then there are, romance specific prompts.
Yeah.
So, but again, all things that, you know, one must think about, if you want to be an organized storyteller. Okay.
Right.
And by the way, this series outline, this is based on what ChatGPT created for me.
Really.
Yeah. And even the characters and some of the actions and stuff, I just put in like a paragraph of an idea I had that's been sitting around for a while. And the idea was for this that in the future there are, corporations find the technology to remove a soul from a dead body and put it to work in some way,
Hmm.
right? Like as an artificial intelligence
Oh
and all
wow.
the things. And so a lot of this stuff is based on what ChatGPT came up
That's a cool
for.
idea.
Yeah, and then of course, you have to expand on it. So
Yeah.
ChatGPT created like four a 4 paragraph thing for each book, and then I expanded on it. Okay. All right, now let's look at the character development. Huh. Okay, so out of that came what we're going to look at next, the character development list. And I know you had said at one point that that's something that you're really not strong on. So that is okay. We are here to help you out. Um, okay, so this is again, the Google Sheet that you have access to. Starts with the graphic of the story hill, and then it goes on to break out each of those things that appear on the story hill itself, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then I also created a thing where it breaks out the character arc using the story hill curve. Okay, so based on what I came up with during those prompts is character development. Okay, and this is going to be at the bottom of that doc that you now have access to. So
Sweet.
if that you want the name, obviously pronouns important in this era.
Yep.
The physical description, occupational role. Now, occupational role is either the protagonist's job or the position and status in the world of the story where this occurs. Where the story occurs, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. There's the history, factors which make the protagonist who they are today, i.e., grew up poor but got an education, etc. We go on to the protagonist's goal. And by the way, this is going to be the case for almost every character. You're not required, obviously, to fill all this stuff out, but these are, and some of this might not be relevant depending on the character and their place in the story. So the goal is a primary objective or desire that drives the main character in the story to get something they want, or to rid themselves something of they don't want, or to stop harm to them or others, or to provide security and pleasure to themselves. Right? Protagonist home and home life, extended family, etc. What if that informs, or is important to the character? Okay, we talked about this couple weeks ago, I think. The wound and the flaw, right?
Mm-hmm.
The wound is the psychic or emotional damage done at an earlier time in this protagonist's life, right? For example, the father left when she was 7, sister committed suicide at the family cabin, etc. Um, and the story should not expose all of the character's wound at early stages. It's something that's going to be worked out over the story, right?
Yeah.
Or revealed by the character,
Yeah.
usually. Now, the flaw, as I mentioned before, is I thought that was, oh, so and so has a bad temper and that gets them in trouble or makes relationships hard, right? But I learned from someone, again, I think it was Sarah Cannon, I can't remember, that the flaw is what this character believes deeply about themselves as a result of the wound,
Okay.
such as because my father left, I'm unlovable, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
another really good one, even more detailed and subtle one, is this character in the series I was working on. Let's say that the sister, the character's sister committed suicide at the family cabin. Well, what that flaw is that happy places are always tainted with deep sadness,
Oh, sure.
right? And then triumph over the flaw comes slowly and with a lot of work throughout the story or throughout the character's life, whatever we see. The character will live out their flaw in decision making and interactions with other characters. So, in a sense, the flaw, or really the result of the flaw, is in a sense it's a character thing, but it's also a plot point. Not
Yeah.
not exactly a point, but it's going to influence the plot
Yeah.
because it's about what the character does and says.
Right.
So that's why I put in this wound flaw results is how does the character act as a result of the wound or flaw, such as keeping potential romantic partners at a distance, moving frequently so no one gets to know them well in one place. So next is the wants, and that's expressed. This is the character's wants, goals, or desires that can be expressed outwardly. And then there's the needs, and that is the protagonist or the character's personal unstated needs that even he or she may not be aware of, right?
Mm.
They
Yeah.
need to change. These needs are the purpose for the protagonist to go through the story,
So the
right?
character knows what their own wants are, but they might be unaware of their needs.
They probably are unaware of their needs.
Okay.
That's what makes for interesting characters with dimension, right?
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, the reader may consciously know what that need is, or they
Mm-hmm.
may unconsciously connect with the need,
Oh, okay.
right? Series opportunities, factors within the series, and this could be book or series or story, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was just working with series. So, factors within the series that help the character in pursuit of their goals. Could be location details, atmosphere, equipment, mental states of characters, cultural expectations, laws, weather, etc. Series obstacles, factors in the series that hinder the character's pursuits of the goals, and usually are the same type of things.
Yeah.
Right? Skills, this character's specific abilities, knowledge, and expertise, which are relevant to their background, occupation, or role in the plot. Equipment is the stuff they have that will help them with this in this plot. Physical abilities and limitations, pretty obvious. Strong, weak, whatever. Can run fast but not run distance. Okay, personality. I just put some examples in here, such as a cold and distant person, or sunny and generous with other one. And then the personality abilities. They may be cold and distant, but they are extremely intelligent, analytical, or if a person such as who has a sunny and generous disposition can charm the grouchiest person in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, keeping with that specific theme of those two different character or personality types, uh, the first character might have a difficulty connecting emotionally with others, and the
Yep.
second character with a sunny disposition may never be taken seriously by others. Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to strengths, which is deep, personal. And again, this is just my wording, may evolve. It's not meant to be, descriptive of anybody else's wording or character development tips. So the strengths are deep personal qualities which keep this character from being negatively influenced by people, events, or circumstances. Right.
Yep.
And that could be, being comfortable with who they are, a strong sense of right and wrong. And then there's vulnerabilities, deep personal qualities, which make this character prone to influence. I need to put a by people, events, or circumstances, right? Such as an incomplete sense of self and or being ambiguous in judgments of right and wrong. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Then there's the simple things, likes and dislikes. Likes, things, people, food, places, experiences, etc. This character likes or prefers, which makes them feel happy, safe, comfortable, valued, etc. Dislikes is the opposite. What makes them feel unhappy, unsafe, uncomfortable, valued, etc. This is one that I had never even thought of. This pairing until I
Yeah.
worked on those prompts. Causes, situations, people, relationships, institutions, conditions this character seeks to serve, help, or change. Grievance is the stuff that the character recognizes as frustrating, corrupt, frustrating, weak, which they cannot or will not seek to change.
Hmm.
Yeah. Had never even considered that.
Yeah, those are interesting.
Yeah, and very illustrative. And this is an example of when you're doing your character development of putting it in action, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, plenty of writers do it in reflection and narration. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
I just like to see these things in action,
Okay.
right? That, he stops to talk to a homeless woman, on the side of the street, and kind of makes him late for a meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
Hobbies and interests, another simple one. Just things that this character likes to do outside of main their main job, life, or even their part in the story. The classic is the homicide detective who's building or restoring a boat.
Oh yeah. Yes. Or an old car. It's always
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, so tired of that.
Yeah, that's the old cliche.
Yeah.
Uh, Series character arc. Okay. Detail the transformation via growth or decline of this character in the series or the story, the book, whatever. And then there are some examples here, like from selfishness to selflessness, etc. Okay. Um, Significant dates, another thing I never thought about, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, not just anniversaries and stuff, but also, my mom died on April 8th or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, now that is the full menu of character development points to date. There might be
Yeah.
more, and I haven't counted them, so I don't know how many I ended up putting in there, but I'm going to count them right now if I can get to the right spot. I think there's like 25 of them or something.
That's a healthy list.
Yes. Yeah, not to be, yeah, there's like between 20 and 25.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, and a lot of this stuff I never thought much about,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so let's go back as we go down. And again, I want to point out that you don't necessarily have to answer all of these questions in order to get your story started. Not at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Yeah.
Some may only um, come to you as you work on the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? And others may never be um, uh, relevant. I would suggest that the protagonist in particular is probably the one who's going to have most of these filled out,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so let's scroll down. I'm starting to get dizzy from the scrolling up and down. So, other types of characters. Ally. This is
Yeah.
someone, this protagonist, or yeah, ally is typically a protagonist ally. Someone they know or will meet in the story, typically early in that third phase, right? When they get into the new world, someone they know or will meet who will help the protagonist progress toward their goal in this series or in this story. And then this is one that I added for further characters um, who aren't protagonists, and that is how are these characters connected, right?
Yep.
Okay, now we've got the rival next, a person this protagonist knows or will meet who wants some of what the protagonist wants and fights the protagonist for it, thereby forcing the protagonist to expose and overcome weaknesses to find the strengths that ultimately help the protagonist progress toward their goals. Got it?
Yep.
So we've got the rival relationship. Now, this is one that I added for rival and antagonist is the history between the two of them.
Yeah.
What, if anything, has occurred in the past before this series started that has created an oppositional relationship between the two characters? And again, they may just meet, right? So, depending on the story. Same with the antagonist, the person, group, or force which stands in the way of and competes for protagonist wants, needs, or goals. Okay. So this is a little, I think, unclearly worded. the antagonist may be competing for the higher goal of the uh, protagonist.
Yeah.
They definitely are standing in the way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, then you got the relationship and you got the history there. Okay, that's as far as I went. I also added to the overall list enemies, which are who are agents of the protagonist, right? Who kind of take the rival's spot in the second half of the story.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. The enemies are the sort of sergeants of the antagonist.
Right.
Okay. And
And
the rival's different though?
yeah, the rival is within that sheltered world
Yeah.
competing for the same thing or part of what the protagonist is going for,
Okay.
right? And the enemies are agents of the antagonist who fight back against the protagonist's
Okay.
movement into and through the unsheltered world.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and again, I just did shorthand for these other characters. You can fill in any of this stuff, these other character development points, for any and all of those characters.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
try and have a shallow character after filling all these out. It's
Oh God.
impossible.
Yeah, I know. I was, and it really kind of surprised me as I was working on this stuff. I'm like, wow, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
You just kind of assume that the character sort of shows up fully formed,
Yeah.
but the truth is that all of these will have an effect on their journey through the story.
Yeah. And I like having even like just anniversaries. Like
Mm.
even if it's not used in the story, it's but there's some moment attached to that date that is going to have an effect and that can't help but enter into your mind as you're writing. And then maybe you get to that like, oh, it's Thanksgiving now and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's right, I had something for this, or there's
Yeah.
something around this now and it creates more just tension or something. So no,
Well,
that's
yeah, and the more dimensionality to the character. More subtle realms, so to
yeah.
speak, beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'll keep working on some of those points to reword them correctly and that kind of thing. Do you have any questions or other comments about the character development points?
No, I want to take a look at because as you're going through this, I was kind of in my mind sort of thinking about it, the causes and the grievances thing, there's a lot there that could really plumb the depths for me. So I want to dig into that some more.
All right, cool. Okay. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us today.
Sweet.
I love it. Some good work today, and 2 weeks of cogitating for me and writing for you.
Yeah, it's
I
been
hope
fun.
the uh, I hope the story hill is helping more than it's hindering.
When I remember to use it, it does.
Yeah, well, the one of my major things is that I have so many more stories than I have been able to put out, and that all of this organization and reorganization and analysis and creating these materials for you
Yeah,
is to help me get a process down that will enable me to get more done.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and it's also odd that I have this sense about that gap that I mentioned earlier, that there's
yeah,
something in the story that I'm just missing.
yeah,
It's like there's a blind spot there for some reason, but
yeah.
maybe it requires psychotherapy. I don't know, but yeah. All right, cool. So
Cool.
you're gonna go and do some more writing this week. You're gonna look
Yep.
at the character development and let me know if you have any questions, and we'll keep working on that.
Will do. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. Exciting. All right,
Yeah.
let's sign us off here. Okay, thanks for joining us, Writing Rabble. Today we went over my adventures in AI. Whew, that's going to be an ongoing thing, and hopefully I can give you all a little update as I work through some of the resources that are available in AI. But one thing I can tell you, writers, is that don't panic. Your jobs are safe. AI cannot possibly do it. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that the trainer at PseudoWrite mentioned a phrase that I thought described perfectly the reason that AI can't write a full story and or can't remember what it wrote for you before is it doesn't have narrative logic. So that is the author's purview. And so that was really interesting. And then we went through some questions and updates for Wes. I keep wanting to call him Russ because that's his main character's name. Went over his progress over the past couple of weeks and some questions, and then we went through the character development points that I am discerning and divining and will be revising. So, thanks a lot. Oh, and by the way, remember that the Writing Rabble book, Write and Publish Your Books Your Way, is available on Kindle. Just go down to the description and the link is in there. So until next time, Writing Rabble, button chair, words on page. Bye now.